Right, our last lecture of the day, Domenico Cellaro. Domenico is a third generation professional farrier who graduated in 1999 from military farrier veterinary school in
Grosseto is in Tuscany.
Grosseto in Italy. He has a keen interest in equine podiatry and locomotion. This interest prompted him to design a special device that reproduces an equine forelimb with its functional position and body weight during the different stance phases of gait. Domenico is also an international speaker, newly educating vets and farriers.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction. Thank you for invitation this great congress. I'm sorry for my English, I'm Italian, I'm sorry for you. So, the topic that I'm talking today, just now, is the effects of hard and soft surfaces of sport horses. What I want to explain before, that human and horses has an historical strong relationship, because horses helped humans in civilization during centuries. I made a small research about how long this relationship is between horses and humans, and the first document comes from the Hittites. The Hittites, with their master horse trainer Gulley, were the first people that domesticated the horses to pull chariot. This training has been documented in that time, because there are documents, and a specific workout program, feeding and horse care in 214 days. The horse has to be the same physical body and endurance condition. The Hittites were the first one that showed horses, because normally we think that the Romans invented the war chariot, but the war chariot was invented by Hittites, and we think that Romans people, they invented the shoes. They don't invent it. The shoes were invented, they need to have the horses 2,000 years before Christ. And the horses is still, that time, old time, is very useful, because have the horses in agriculture, the farmers' horsepower, transportation. And horses are still good partners, but it's changed the needs. The horse today is competing in a wide range of equestrian sports that test various aspects of the athletic abilities, like dressage, jumping, and different Western disciplines, and also racing, like galloping and trotting. And horses are like sportsmen. And when the people, the humans, practice sports, are predisposed to injuries and lameness. Behind the horses, mainly the show horses, they are the sponsor. And the horse industry is working to research, promoting new methods to improve horses' performance level, like breeding and testing new training methods. And the horses are broken at a very young age. What happens when the horses are broken at a very young age? The demands of a training session exceed the horse's physical capacity. When you use at a young very age the horse, what's happened? You develop pathologies. The horse is subject to the trauma. We are the Farrier and Vet Congress. We are, every one of us is a professional in his field. And we know very well that the foreign injuries is one of the main important problems that affect the athletic abilities of horses. Today we are very, very lucky, because we are surrounded about new technologies to understand locomotion, to study, and maybe to perform better with horses. You can see here the horses moving in a restricted area. The horses are the body markers, also the riders are the body markers. Because in this way you can make a study about the horse locomotion. And you can see also how the position of the rider can change the performance of the horses. How this kind of research works? There are high-speed camera that catching the 3 body markers. In this case of this study, they use 60 video cameras indoor, and they make when these people make the study outdoor, they use 41. It's a very expensive study, because there is this big equipment. And you can see, what you can see is on your computer, you can see just the dots are the markers, and the line. The line connects to the bones. you can see the movement, the segments in the space. So this is a kind of study of slow motion. Is a study that analyzes the biomechanics, and the biomechanics study and explain the movement with the law, the physics, and kinematics. For example, what we study just the bone segments I said before. We studied the segments of the head, the neck, the back, and you see the limbs. And the focus is always on the forelimb because, as I said you before, the forelimb has a higher risk injury than hind limb. But every scientific study has a limitation because with this study you can see the motion of the horse. You can improve the motion of the horse, mainly for dressage, but is unable to explain what happens when you change the training to achieve the better performance into the horses, because no one of this study is able to explain what's happening inside the forelimb. Indeed, it is not possible to understand the real interaction between the distal forelimb internal structures and tissue during locomotion. As a father, I'm very curious and I want to improve my knowledge. And for this, I learn English because every scientific paper are written in English. And this scientific paper say that it's relatively, little is known about actual loading during demanding activities. And the direct measurements of the tendon forces is limited by invasive because these studies are very invasive. Because I was talking with Renata Weller at Royal British College of London. They make a microsurgery that introduces small circuits inside the tendons. It's a microsurgery, but you affect the locomotion. And it is a very invasive study. So when we talk is invasive, this means that it develops pain to the horse. The horse changes stance, braces, swing phase. Another studies says that invasive experiments are limited for ethical and practical reasons, and it's impossible to attach some gauges or instruments to the tendons or the ligaments because it's very complicated. It is impossible to collect all the data of all structures inside the forelimb during the different gates or motion. But in this scientific paper, they explain that indirect methods like musculoskeletal modeling are very powerful to provide, analyze, study the interaction of the forelimb. So for them, it's important to produce something that is closer to the reality. And this one is maybe the last one. The dynamic simulation using a musculoskeletal model can provide valuable insights into the biomechanical factors that causes tendons and ligaments. In few words, they say that working with a musculoskeletal model is extremely useful to understand the causes that develops injuries, and in this case, could be useful to find the key factor that can develop injuries. So in few words, it's important to have a musculoskeletal model to understand interaction inside the forelimb. So it's, to reproduce a musculoskeletal model, it's very important to reproduce the whole limb. It's important because the muscle of the tendon have to produce the muscle of the tendon together, because the muscles and tendons are a unique entity. For example, we are able to move our fingers because the brains give the electric impulse to the muscles are connected to bones, and with the contraction of the muscle, we can move the hands. So if you want to do a study using a cadaveric limb, it's important to have the whole limb. So now I try to create my musculoskeletal model. So my musculoskeletal model is made in this way. The anatomic parts from the carpus, those foot, are taken from the slaughterhouse. So this part is real. And the upper part, like a radius, superficial muscle, like accessory ligaments of superficial, deep superficial flexor tendon, and the deep flexor muscle are reproduced artificially. So this is my first attempt to produce, let's say, the musculoskeletal model. This one is real because it comes from the slaughterhouse. This one is artificial. You can see the cap reproduces the capus, the pipe reproduces the radius, and the clamps are connected to the superficial flexor muscle. And it's not enough because this limb has to be, dynamic. You can see here that the limb is loading. The loading is acting on the limb is 1 ton. And for me, this is a big success because I can load the limb till the fetlock is closer to touch the ground. Normally, when you try to load the limb without muscles, the limb slips away from the podal block. Indeed, to avoid this, many authors anchor the toe of the hoof to the podal block. The podal block has to be anchored very well too. If you want to try to use a cadaveric limb without muscle, the load they can use is to be very low because if you want to exceed like 1 ton, it's impossible because the limb becomes a weapon. So with my musculoskeletal model, it doesn't happen because you can see the horse foot is completely free on the podal block. Nothing is anchored. Try to anchor the foot on the podal block. So, but this it is just the beginning of my musculoskeletal model. It's the beginning because you see the forelimb is not static; it's in motion, and he reproduces the stance phase. The stance phase is when the hoof is in contact with the ground until the breakover, and after that there is a swing phase. Swing phase, stance phase are the cycle of movement. So it could be nice that, for example, to able to produce a musculoskeletal model reproducing the stance phase. So this is my first attempt to reproduce the stance phase of gait. And this is my results. You can see here on the limb is this load is 1 ton. I can reproduce the stance phase. The stance phase is upon the full contact till the breakover. And also, you can see very well on this video that the hoof capsule is completely free on the podal block. This means that it's very closer to the reality. The other problem for me is to find a good protocol because the good thing about to have a musculoskeletal model it is to have the same condition. And the same condition is nice because you have the same condition you can compare. This one you cannot do with the live horses because the horses cannot perform every day in the same way. Also, it can have the influence of the rider. So there are many things that can influence the motion of the horses. So develop a standardized protocol is very, very important. What I did, I divided the stance phase in many steps. The first step is the full contact. The other step is 1/2 mid-stance. We have the mid-stance of phase, 3/4 breakover, 1/2 breakover, and we have the breakover. So the steps are the same, and in this way I can change the limb, but the steps, the protocol is standardized. In this way I can have the power to compare the results. And when I talk about the breakover, you can see here, it's not very clear on this screen, but here is not touching the ground. So my musculoskeletal model is very, very close to the reality. But it is not enough because I want to understand how the limb is loaded during the commotion because I want to do something like to be closer to reality. To do this, we have a sample like a horse, the body weight is 500 kilograms. When the horse is walking on the forelimbs touching the ground, there is almost 30% of the body weight. So it means 150 kilograms. At a trot, 3.7 meters per second, the body weight acting on the forelimb is in contact with the ground is 120%. This means 600 kilograms. So the weight is acting on the limbs higher than the body weight of the horse. Also on the counter, 5 meters per second, the body weight is acting on the frame is 150%. So it means 750 kilograms. A gallop 40 meters per second, the body weight acting on the forelimb is 150%. And when a horse is landing from jumping, the trial limb is the first limb is touching the ground, is at 200% body weight. So horses with 500 kilograms, when it's landing from jumping, in that forelimb is acting 1 ton. I'm talking with Renata Well, she's saying that new generation racing horses, they can cover 18 meters per second, and they make them the measurements, and they are loading more than 200 percent. They are loading 250 percent. All this information are not invented by me, but it comes from this scientific paper because I will say before what I'm doing about my musculoskeletal model to be very close to the reality. The question is, what we can do with this model? It's simple, because when we have a dynamic musculoskeletal model, we can understand the interaction, the inner structures that are invisible to human eye. For example, another thing is nice, not for us, maybe for owners. It's very important because they think that the horse foot is just a piece of wood. It's not true. You can see inside of capsule that the bones is changing. Oops. Okay. You can see also that the palmar angle is changing, navicular angle is changing. Also the distance between the lamina, dorsal oblique tree with dorsal wall is changing. Also, I was very surprised because this changing on dorsal length and the length of the foot. I was so surprised because when attending my farrier school, the only thing that they talk about the changing of the length, it is, let's see, the changing of the foot width. No one ever talked about me that there is a changing of the length of the foot and the length of the wall. So, and for this is nice because we can learn something that is not written on the book, in standard books, because at that time no one can do some studies, analyze, also have the tools to make this kind of observation. So, in few words, when the horse foot is when the hoof is in contact with the ground and we are reducing the stance face weight, you can see very well we have the changing on the dorsal wall, the changing of foot length, the changing of the foot width. And the combination of this motion of the foot can explain us why an horseshoe in here area is so shine. Because this is a combination of 3 different changing length in width, about dorsal wall, you say foot length, and heel width. So now I've seen why it is so useful to have a musculoskeletal like this one. It's that it is closer to the reality. It is useful because we have moved back our goal to understand why the forelimb injuries develop, we say, pathologies and they affect the sport horses. To understand why the forelimb are more subject to injuries, it could be nice to find explanation comparing human versus with the horses. Humans have straight legs like colonnum, and this means that the muscles are in equilibrium without effort, because the gravity forces are perpendicular to the ground, exactly as you can see here on the human legs. So now you compare the human legs with the horse leg. The horse leg has also a shape of a column, but the shape of column stops at the beginning of, how you say, the fetlock. The fetlock represents like an oblique pillar and under the column. And what happens when we have an oblique pillar? The column is not stable, it's simple that it falls down. So the fetlock joint, the fetlock is the weakness area because it's not perpendicular, it's oblique, and it is very common, it's simple that the column can fall down. So the forelimb is subject to injuries because just because I have these angles. Because in this area the muscle are perpendicular, straight like humans, but with this angle, everything is hack and fall down, following the gravity laws. So in few words, when the limb is loaded, the fetlock joint is collapsing, like you can see in this video. And the suspensory structures oppose the force that try to collapse. This is a job about the flexor structures. And when the suspensory structures try to oppose the collapsing of the fetlock, that means the deep giraflexor tendon, superficial tendon, suspensory ligament of the fetlock, all the structures take part of the suspensory structures undergoes extreme tension or stresses. This is what you're seeing now just in mid-stance phase. Now I'll show you what's happened during the stance phase. What I'll show you, it is just a study of biomechanic and biometrics interaction between the load is acting on the forelimb and the reaction of the stress of the tendons, the suspensory tendons of the forelimb. When you talk about the biometric, it's just a word explaining that you make measurements of an anatomical part of the horses or the humans. So what you see here, with the white, I identify the superficial, with the yellow, the deep giraflexor tendon, and with this green is load is acting on the forelimb. We have the graph. During the graph, you can see all the step, the stance phase. Also, the yellow is the deep giraflexor tendon, the white is superficial, and you see the green dot is indicated the load acting on the forelimb. So during the stance phase, at the full contact, we have that superficial deep giraflexor tendon has a tension higher than deep giraflexor tendon. And when the limb is moving forward the mid-stance phase and go on to the breakover, you can see that the load acting on the limb decrease. It decreases also the tension of the flexor tendons. And it is a big surprise because it is a big surprise for me. But after these results, I just to find scientific papers because our standard education said we have to protect the deep giraflexor tendon to the injuries. But in reality, it's not true. Because what is the higher risk of injury is the superficial and not the deep giraflexor tendon. There is this little conflict between what is written in the book and what we find in reality. In reality, superficial is a higher risk of injury than deep. Only in trotting course, the risk of injury is the opposite. The deep giraflexor tendon has the higher risk of injury, only in trotting courses. And with this graph is just a summary of what's happened during the stance phase. At the full contact, the load is higher, and the superficial is still higher at the 1/2 of the stance phase. At the mid-stance phase, you can see that the deep giraflexor tendon, the tension is higher than superficial, because in mid-stance phase, more or less, the limb of the forces is almost perpendicular, and this means that the muscles are in equilibrium. So there is less efforts in the mid-stance phase. So the question is, why superficial giraflexor tendon is more tension than the deep giraflexor tendon? There is always an explanation. The structural ability to withstand forces, it is determined by its structural properties, which depend on its materials properties and its dimensions. Superficial geoflexor tendon has the same material of deep geoflexor tendon, but its dimension are smaller than deep geoflexor tendon. Or you can see better in this picture. You can see how thick is deep geoflexor tendon. How it is in the superficial is very, very thin. So, in conclusion, we can say during the stance phase, the suspensory apparatus undergoes extreme tension, but the highest tension we have at the braking phase. The braking phase is identified in this way. Impact is the first third stance phase of the the first third of the stance after the hoof has made contact with the ground, is the full contact. It represents the first stage of the collision of the mass of the horse while the leg, with the leg on the track. It's called the braking phase. What we understand also like humans, when we are walking, we have something that breaks us. Otherwise, some of these forces that break us, we fall down. You can see when the horse's foot is touching the ground, there is a deceleration of the mass because it's just to stop. And in this, when the hoof is touching the ground, it's like the car is crashing against the wall. So at the braking phase, there are the highest tension and stress to the suspensory structures. Also, horses landing from the jump, you can see very well that the fetlock is, we say, touching the ground. And also in this case, there is a braking effect because without this braking, the horse fall down. And if you can see, before the fetlock, the forelimb is like a rigid limb. And only the distal part from the fetlock to the foot, this anatomically are designed to absorb the impact, the concussion with the ground. So, why superficial geoflexor tendon or suspensory ligament of fetlock are subject to higher loads during the braking phase? The response is very important because always there is the K factor that develops pathology, and it's very important to identify which is the K factor. To do my studies at the beginning, I've had a very big problem because always our standard education says there is the only correlation that there is between the deep geoflexor tendon and the stress is correlated this tendon is correlated with the Parma angle. And what I did with my study, my first protocol is just to reproduce the X-ray pictures like the vets do normally in the field, just to catch the foot and the postural joint. And then I didn't find the correlation. I was a little bit upset, but it's not working in my study. It's not possible because the changing of the Parma angle is not so big to justify the high load on the flexor, on the deep geoflexor tendon. So what I did, I moved back just to see again the slow motion video. You see that the fetlock joint is doing a good job, a great job in to absorb a concussion. So what I did, I introduced the fetlock joint in my X-ray pictures, and I want to understand also how I can make the measurements of these joints. And for this, I try to have the fetlock joint angle. Fetlock joint angle is I can achieve drawing the line from the middle cannon bone that across the center of the fetlock articulation. And the other axis is drawn by the third center rotation of the fetlock to the proximal interphalangeal joint. So we did do this to axis higher an angle. This angle is fetlock joint angle. And what I can show you is just to understand if there is some correlation between the fetlock joint and the stresses of the the stresses of the flexor structures. And I'm not analyzing anymore all the stance phase. What I'm analyzing now is the breaking phase, because what we've seen before, when the loss is touching the ground, this is the acceleration, the fetlock could fall down to absorb the concussion. Otherwise, the forelimb could be broken. So we have the limb with the graph. You can see also the white is superficial, the yellow is deep flexor tendon, and with the red is the angle of fetlock. Just we move very slow, step by step. You can see from the beginning of the collision, you can see how the fetlock joint angle increase its angle during the impact phase. And there is a correlation, because at every increasing of the fetlock joint angle increases the suspensory and deep flexion tension. So the correlation between stresses and the superficial or deep flexor tendon is not the palmar angle, but it is the fetlock joint. If we go back, it's very clear. And oops, what I did? When limb is loaded, and loaded, we have a more angle, the fetlock joint angle. And you know that the fetlock joint angle is falling down because its job is to absorb the concussion, and the flexor structure is to withstand its collapsing of the fetlock joint. Conclusion: superficial and deep flexor tendon with their elastic properties have a main role to limit the fetlock joint hyperextension under high loads. The red one, red arrow, it means the force, the gravity forces is perpendicular to the ground that try to collapse the fetlock joint, and this light blue are the work that the suspensory apparatus is making to fight the collapsing of the fetlock joint hyperextension. The fetlock is a very flexible joint due to a big range of motion, because the first center rotation, the coffee joint, has a range of motion more or less plus the 10 degrees. The second center rotation, the proximal interphalangeal joint, the range of rotation is always more or less 10 degrees. But the third center rotation, range of motion is 9 degrees. The range of the motion of these bones is are correlative about the design, the shape of the bones. You can see if you compare the coffee joint, the proximal joint, you can see also the fetlock joint. You can see the shape of the radius with the P1. It's like a true spherical structure. This is why the fetlock joint has this big range of motion. So what we can say now that the fetlock joint is the key factor that influences the superficial giraflexor tendon and suspensory fetlock of the joint. Another thing to talk, how the forelimb reacts in soft surface. When we see the orthoprint on the track, we have many theories that try to explain what happened to the forelimb, but it is just an idea, but we don't know exactly what's happened. What I did, I had the same limb, I used the same standardized protocol. The only thing that have changed is that the podoblock, it represents the rigid, the solid, or like a concrete or hard surface, and the podoblock had a soft surface. And the other thing that the position, also the foot on the podoblock is the same, because on the podoblock I make the drawing the line in vertical or horizontal line. This way I have the coordinates. Also, when you add the basket with the soft soil, you can see the line perpendicular with the line of the puddle block. So in this way, I was able to put the foot always in the same position like the pod block, using always the same standardized repeatable protocol. So now we can see what's and compare what's happened to the forelimb during working on a hard soft surface. So what we can see here, on the left you can see the hard surface, and on your right you can see the soft surface. Just the first impression, drawing an axis from the vertical joint with the proximal joint, I drawing another axis from the proximal interphalangeal joint with the coffee joint. What we can see, that in hard surface we have a broken axis because these lines are not in the same line, because normally our standard education says that for a better showing, the digit have to be in the same line. What's happened on soft soil? Drawing the same axis, we are seeing that something is improved. We have a digit axis very close to here, because we see very well. We have a bigger angle, but we have a lower angle. So in soft soil, something is changed, and it looks that it's good. So the horse could be perform better in soft soil. And this is the goal that we try to achieve daily with our job. We try to find the right trimming to have the best digit alignment. But is it right? Just no one understand if our standard education is right or not. Now we start to compare very well the hard surface with soft surface. What you can see on soft surface, the palmar angle is higher. On hard is 80 degrees. On the soft is 10 degrees. We can have this higher palmar angle because in soft surface there is rotation of the toe into the ground. And it looks like we have a heel elevation. The consequence that the distal joint adapted the direction and position, because we have seen before that these joints has a range of motion. So when you change something underneath the feet, these joints are able to adapt their orientation. And another thing that is not very clear immediately to our eyes is what's happened to the fetroc joint. On hard, the fetroc joint is 30 degrees. In soft, it's 38. So we have a higher hyperextension of the fetroc on soft surface than hard surface. So something could be look for our eyes is not very functional for the horses. So we can see also the fetroc joint angle is bigger. And now you can see also compare the tension of the tendons. On the deep is 150 kilograms. With soft surface is 280 kilograms. It's 100 kilograms more. And also superficial. On hard surface is 300, and soft is 450. It's higher loaded than hard surface. So it's very nice for you also to have a visual education. You can see that during the breaking phase, how the angle of the fetroc joint increased during the breaking phase. So you know very well when the angle becomes bigger, also the tension you see on the tension of the superficie of the tempo are higher. Now we can compare the results that comes from the hard and the soft surface. Comparing hard and soft, you can see also that on hard and soft, superficial is always more tensioned, as I am more stressed than deep. But in soft, superficial and deep flexor tendon are more stressed than hard. Oops. Than hard. The only thing that is changing is the effect of the load on the superficial. Before mid-distance phase, the superficial is higher. At mid-distance phase, superficial is lower than deep flexor tendon. In soft surface, still in mid-distance phase, the superficial is more loaded. So this could be a nice information for us, because if you have horses with you say injuries to the superficial tendon, if you want to rehab the horses, it could be better if you rehab horses in hard surface. Conclusion. The suspensory apparatus, like superficial and deep flexor tendon, suspensory ligament of fetlock, play the primary role of supporting limb during the stance phase and undergoes extreme tension during the breaking phase. This means that it predisposes to fatal or non-fatal injuries. Deep flexor tendon, superficial and suspensory ligament of fetlock produce an adequate resisting force in supporting the fetlock. It is a joint stabilizer, positioning and coordination, and impact force attenuation during locomotion. Oh, sorry. Also, when you see the horse, why is? Okay. You can see very well also, mainly in this slow motion video, there are also the activity of the muscles. When the horse's limb is at the end of the swing phase, the muscles of superficial GBR flexor tendon are activated, are more contraction, because with the contraction they give tension to the tendons. This way, give this tension to the tendon, give the forelimb the direction to impact the ground. Otherwise, with the activity of the tendon, they have no stability in the limb. And you can understand if your horse is ready to the landing without stability in the limb, the forelimb could be broken. So when the horse is working on a soft surface, the internal structures of the forelimb have an adaptive changing. You have seen that the joint, the first, second, third center of rotation, they because they have a particular bone shape, they have the ability to have an adaptive changing. And the message that I want to see you, that we have to choose horses, we have not to pay more attention, don't focus to achieve a good looking distal limb, because it's not functional for the horses. And another thing is very important, that the ideal conformation, it is not a rule. It is a tool to compare for understanding limb abnormalities, because limb abnormalities means that are predisposed to specific injuries sooner or later, correlated with the horse sport disciplines. Like sportsmen, every sport has the correlative pathologies for the humans. Conclusion. The pathologies of superficial, the flexor tendon, and other structures of the suspensory apparatus are strictly correlated to fetlock joint angle. The fetlock joint angle is the key factor that develops pathologies on the flexor apparatus. When we know the adaptive changing of this fetlock joint angle during different stance space of gait and surfaces, we can modify them. We can find a way to modify them to reduce the tension of the structures, because we have seen that these joints have the ability to adapt. Maybe we can find the solution that to reduce the hyperextension of the fetlock. This means that the right knowledge had to prevent and treat lameness or can maximize the horse performance. And please take care of this take-home message, because it's very, very important. For a good life, never argue with your wife or about hoof balance, because you are always wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Domenico. Never argue with your wife, full stop. Great advice.
I'm sorry, but I hope that my speech was clear, because I'm not very comfortable to speak in other language in front of the mother tongue.
It's better than my Italian, so your English is much better than my Italian.
Of course, thank you. But I never heard one word in Italian.
Who's got questions for Domenico?
The questions is good.
Oh, come on. Someone have a question. Well done, Andrew. You're next.
Brilliant lecture, mate. Really enjoyed that. And yeah, the images are fantastic. It was just an answer, like a question with your press. So you press the limb to 1,000 kilograms? Is that right?
Yes, I can load the. Okay, every gate has a weight. So for every gate, every stance phase, I use the weight in specific gates. So the study is not one study. I can produce walk, trot, gallop, canter, gallop, and the load of jumping that the forelimb is acting when the horse is landing from jumping. So the protocol is the same. We have the same steps for the stance phase, but I make the stance phase of the walk is in one study. The same limb, I reproduce the stance phase of the trot from the full stand point. The step is always from a full contact to the breakover, but every time I add more load from walk to the landing.
So you up the load for the different gates, for the different results. But the bit that I can't get right at the moment is because I loaded legs at home, so I can use Metron. When you watch a horse, a slow-mo video of a horse galloping or jumping, like your nice video of a horse jumping, that fetlock makes contact with the ground, like in some of the gates. But then when you do research, you can load it to 1,000 kilograms, but that limb isn't fully hyperextended to the ground.
Okay, also in my study, you can see I load 1 ton. The fetlock joint is printed down, but it's not touching the ground. Maybe, I was explained before, every study has a limitation. Limitation of my machine is this. I can load more. I have an idea because in the winter I have to do some modification on my machine, because my goal is to pull down the fetlock, and I have to work a little bit more with the contract forces of the muscles, because it's very difficult to produce a machine that's very close to reality. But what I'm trying to do with my study is not to develop rules, just principles, and just to show the people what's up inside of capsule, because you have a visual education. You have an idea. It's not a law. It's not a rule. Just understand what we can do. The study I'll show you, it is just barefoot, because I don't want influenced by humans. But the other study could be useful to use to compare toe clip with side clip, how much you can move back your shoes, or we say how you can pack the shoes. Because last year was Michael Savoldi at home, and we tried to pack to do some attempts on packing the hoof. At that time we were unable to do the study, because there are always something that doesn't work. Once a broken machine, another time we broken other stuff. It makes me very upset, because I'm losing time. But the only thing that I was seeing, also with the barefoot, without or shoes, without nothing, packing the limb twists every day, every time, with the packing. Without the packing, it doesn't twist. This is the attempt that we made. It has made it with the pod block, so hard surface. We never tried to make the limb, I would say, on soft surface. But this is the first attempt to understand, because if some maybe P3 is collapsing one side, lateral, medial, maybe you can pack it a bit to make better, to have a better position of P3. I want to understand which kind of silicone it takes, the quantity, the show, and everything. And this is the first attempt. But in that time, there's something that doesn't work. To do this, I need time, because I'm a father full time. Also, to build machine, I spent 5 years to build this machine, because no one could help me. And many people, this is impossible, because if Jean-Marie Denois is unable to do, because Jean-Marie Denois has many sponsors, it means that doesn't work. But after 5 years, it works. And also, to do this study, I'm sorry, it's not beautiful to talk about money. It cost me a lot of money, because I'm no sponsor, I'm not a university. Many times to have the X-rays, to pay the vet. This study, it takes, if I'm lucky, I need 12 hours, if I'm lucky. To do the study that I will show you tomorrow, I start in the morning, 5 in the morning, I stopped 2 in the morning, almost 24 hours, because when I'm starting the study, I cannot stop, because I'm working with the dead legs. And you stop, you say the stature becomes immediately very stiff. And you cannot explain something, because it's very, very far from the reality. So what you say are right. If you try to load a little bit, I cannot. I can do it, but something broke in my machine. For example, the study you made, another thing that people don't understand, if you have a cadaveric limb, fresh, and you have the cannonball, and you, with your hands, try to give load, the foot is still there, doesn't move, because it's a magic structures that also the tendons are cut off from the muscles, but all the structures together are able to fight something without the muscles. You should try, and the foot doesn't slip away. If you have a press, you can do the studs, of course. If you have not the muscle, the pastern joint, the structures move different. But if you give a lower load, you can load the limb. If you want to push more down, the fetlock is squeezed away. It is a weapon.
That's fascinating. Thank you very much. I'd love to have a look at your press. Definitely looks better than my eBay press.
Yes, I spent 5 years and much money.
Any more questions? With your press, what does it look like above the carpus? I'm trying to work out how it's attached and body weight would move over the limb.
Okay, which is exactly the question? The carpus?
Yes.
Yeah, above the carpus. So the bit you've made where it's attached to the carpus. What does it look like? What is the?
It's just a cap.
Okay.
Yes, because when I was talking with Renata Welle, they use pins that make it, the hole in the radius. They use pins, but the carpus has a little bit motion because of the bones. So I'm using the pins. I'm using a cap closer. It's a replication of the carpus. That the carpus has a little bit motion because I try to reproduce the motion of the real forelimb. And many things that you cannot see in my video because I need to protect what I did. Also the clamps, Renata Welle said when you use the clamps, you have to use the eyes clamps because the eyes glue the tendon, so the tendon cannot slip from the clamp. I have not that kind because it's expensive. After many attempts, I developed a stupid clamps that clamp the tendons, and the tendons are still there. Because Renata Welle moved at home to see a machine. He was surprised because she said, we have tried without eyes, it doesn't work. I find solution that it works because every solution I have to find, I have to be what I can afford with the money. University, they are very, very well funded. You can have the best tools in the world. But also Renata cannot reproduce sans face of weight, the sans face of gating.
So, what speed did your press, actually, what was the power stroke? Was it slower, was it quite a slow? You can achieve any kind of speed. You can achieve the same speed.
You can achieve whatever you want. Faster speed, lower speed, I can achieve everything. Because normally when I'm building something, I have to be more versatile. Because today I can do this, but tomorrow I can change something. So I can do everything you want.
So you can replicate the speed of...
Also the speed, I can make measurements of the speed, yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because I have to be some steps forward, because I'm investing a lot of money and I don't want that to do something different from what I'm doing today and to change all the machine to do it.
Yeah, because we've got a press, but our college one, we can't replicate like the velocity that the pedal drops at. It's just a limitation of the press.
Yes, but what I have to do now, I think I have to work with my artificial muscles. And maybe if we can make some modification, I can reply when the fetlock joint is almost touching the ground to be very closer to the reality. But it's not my primary goal, because my goal is to give a visual education, not develop rules, just to explain to people what happened, just an idea. Because this is just one step. Because when I can achieve all the data with my protocols, the data are the same. After that, I need to test my results with the live horses. And for this is not a law. Every scientific study has always a limitation. The limitation on live horses is not standardized and repeatable. You can make measurements of the tendons. They have an idea, because they have many formulas. You cannot understand. In this study, you have not seen the ligaments. I can make measurements of the ligaments. For example, another study, what's happened when also you cut off the deep flexor tendon. Horse can move the horse without the tendon, but there are other structures that are involved. In that case, I make measurements of the tendon. I explain why the proximal sigmoid bones fracture is always in specific area. That area I can explain. So, but to do this, it takes more time. For example, when I did the study, the study needed 12 hours for 18 hours, but the big job is after the study, because I have maybe 80 X-ray pictures from lateral medial view, dorsal view. This picture are to standardize and make measurements with Metron, but I have had more measurements than Metron to find explanation. Same fetlock joint, I invented the fetlock joint. And after that, to make the measurements of the ligaments. And to do this job, I spent different day to do always that job. Because I had to pitch the point exactly and that bone with the other bone to make measurements of length, the angles. And also when we talk about breakover, I don't like that word breakover. It's breakover when the heel is leaving the ground. No stress. For me, it could be nice to talk about lever arm, because if you move back, we know if you have a short toe, maybe we have a short stress on deep flexor tendon. What I want to talk is a lever arm. Lever arm want to make measurements is the center of a coffee joint to the toe. If you move back the breakover, lever arm is not here, but it's here, because you have side clips, maybe with equilibrium or something other kind of rocket toe. In this case, it could be nice we talk what we can call breakover, how it works, but not at the end of the stance phase, at the beginning. Because if you reduce the length, the angle of the toe with the shoes, the foot in reality is touching down here, but mechanically the foot is touching on this border of the shoes. This is another topic that we can talk about, because many people are talking about breakover, but the finish breakover when the heel is lifting the ground, no stress. We have just to change the meaning of these words for me. Maybe I'm wrong, but today I can say this. Also, when the people, okay, we improved the breakover. For what? Because the foot leaves the ground before. Yes, when? At the impact, or when it's almost ready for the swing phase. Because when the foot is at the beginning of the swing phase, in that case, the hind limb is pushing the horse forward. This doesn't mean what the other scientific people made are wrong, but the field about the study of locomotion, I think we are just at the beginning. Because many times we focus, as I said before, on the angle of P3. Okay, angle P3 develops pathologies inside of capsule, develop pathologies on the body of the soul, but not the P3 angle doesn't develop you see, pathologies, the flexor tendons, because flexor tendons is very powerful. There are some just mixed misconception. I said before, we have to protect the deep flexor tendon. Why? Jumping horses, dressage horses, the superficial have the higher risk of injury. But we have a different strange approach, because we studied this, but in reality we can see very well it's the opposite. But our brain in some ways focus on the deep flexor tendon, but we have to focus more in superficial.
Grazie, Domenico.
It's nice, grazie. Because normally they say grazie, it's perfect, yes.
Really interesting, thank you.